You probably assume that children need rules, discipline, and constant correction to grow into good adults. But for the vast majority of human history, that wasn't just wrong, it was completely backwards. For roughly 300,000 years, human children grew up with almost no rules and almost no punishment. There were no timeouts, no grounding, no because I said so. And yet by the time they were 12 or 13 years old, most of them could already hunt, gather, make tools, navigate their environment, and take care of themselves and others. So how did that work? You wake up in a small camp. There are no walls, no bedrooms. Maybe 15 or 20 people are sleeping nearby. A child, maybe 4 or 5 years old, gets up whenever they feel like it. No one tells them they have to wake up at a certain time. No one rushes them. If they're hungry, they go find food, usually something left over from the night before, or they ask someone nearby. And someone always shares. There is no schedule, there is no curriculum, there is no one whose job it is to raise the children in the way we think of it today. Instead, children simply lived among adults who were doing real things, and they watched. In hunter-gatherer societies, thought anthropologists have studied groups like the Hung in southern Africa, the Hadza in Tanzania, and the Aka in Central Africa. Children spend almost all of their time in mixed-age groups. A 3-year-old might be playing near a 12-year-old. A 7-year-old might be watching a grandmother process food. There are very few moments where children are separated from the flow of adult life. They don't have toys in the way modern children do. Instead, they play with real objects: sticks, stones, bones, bits of string, old tools. And through that play, they practice the exact skills they will need as adults. A boy might spend hours pretending to hunt with a small bow. A girl might carefully arrange leaves and roots the way she's seen the women do. No one tells them to practice. They just do it because it's interesting and because the people around them are doing it too. When a child does something dangerous, like getting too close to a fire or wandering too far, adults usually don't yell. They don't punish. Instead, they calmly move the child or redirect them. The response is practical, not emotional. The goal isn't to make the child feel bad. The goal is simply to keep them safe. This is one of the biggest differences. Modern parenting often treats misbehavior as something that needs to be corrected through consequences. In these societies, the focus is almost entirely on safety and learning, not on control or obedience. Children are also given an enormous amount of autonomy from a very young age. By the time a child is around 5 or 6, they are often allowed to go off with other children for large parts of the day. They might walk to a nearby water source. They might climb trees. They might explore the area around camp. Adults don't hover. They trust that the children will learn from experience and from the older children around them. This trust is not naive. It comes from the understanding that children are capable. And because they are given real responsibility and real freedom, they rise to meet it. When it comes to learning skills, there is almost no formal teaching. Adults rarely sit down and explain things step by step. Instead, children learn by watching, by asking occasional questions, and by trying things themselves. If a child wants to learn how to make a basket or process a plant or use a digging stick, they can sit close to an adult who is doing it and observe for as long as they want. The adult doesn't stop what they're doing to become a teacher. They just continue their work and the child watches. This kind of learning is slower in some ways but deeper in others. Because the child chooses when and what to learn, the knowledge sticks. There is no pressure to perform. There is only the natural desire to become competent like the people around them. One of the most striking things anthropologists have noticed is how little conflict there is between adults and children in these societies. Because children are rarely told no for arbitrary reasons, they don't develop the same kind of resistance and rebellion we often see in modern parent-child relationships. When a child is told not to do something, it's usually for a clear and immediate reason: safety or the well-being of the group. And because these moments are rare, children tend to listen when it actually matters. There is also something called alloparenting. This means that children are not raised by just their mother and father. They are raised by the entire group. Grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, and even unrelated adults all take part in caring for children. A baby might be carried by many different people throughout the day. A crying toddler might be comforted by whoever is closest. This spreads the emotional load and gives children a wide network of relationships and security. Because of this, children grow up with a deep sense of belonging, but without the intense pressure that can come from having only 1 or 2 people responsible for their entire upbringing. By the time they reach their early teens, most children in these societies are already contributing meaningfully to the group. They can find food. They can make basic tools. They understand the social rules, even though those rules were never explicitly taught through lectures or punishment. They learn them the same way they learned everything else, by watching, participating, and being part of the flow of daily life. So what does this mean for us? It doesn't mean we should abandon all structure or never set boundaries. But it does suggest that many of the things we treat as essential in raising children: constant instruction, heavy discipline, rigid schedules, and the idea that adults must always be in control, may not be as necessary as we think. For most of human history, children became capable adults not because they were tightly managed, but because they were trusted, included, and given the freedom to learn through living. They didn't need to be taught how to be human. They simply grew up among humans who were already being human, and maybe that was enough.